Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. I'm your host, Will McFadden, joined as always by Tori McElhaney and Terrin Walk, and we are here for the final game of the season. It's
regular season,
right? That's an important note because the Falcons still have a chance to make the postseason if things break the right way on Sunday, and they will be facing the Carolina Panthers, who are 4-12. They met earlier this season, Week 6. Atlanta won 38-20 on the road. We are going to get into that game. There's a few different topics on today's podcast, but I know, Terrin, you wanted to start by saying a few things about New Orleans.
Yeah, so I lived in New Orleans before I moved to Atlanta, and I just want to send thoughts and prayers from Atlanta. I know we've all talked about it around the office, about how tragic what happened on New Year's Eve/New Year's Day was. And thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those who were killed and those who are injured. And I just am praying for that city. It's a great city, regardless of your allegiances in the NFL. And so it's just send love and hug those you care about a little tighter each and every day.
Yeah, it was a moment, honestly, that kind of draws you out of the football of it all, right? And I know it kind of was a weird connection to this state as well because Georgia is out there playing in the Sugar Bowl, so we had a lot of kind of overlap, right?
Yeah,
a lot of people.
A lot of friends were staying literally in a block away in the media hotel, and
media members
right. And I don't know. I'm having a hard time even now, getting back into a football mindset because it was just so horrific. And it's really, I texted Terrin last night and I was like, I'm literally going down a rabbit hole just watching all of this stuff. And it's heartbreaking. And to echo Terrin, sending all the love and prayers and support we can to everybody down in New Orleans.
I had to figure out which Bourbon Street establishment to support today.
Pat O'Brien's.
Dealing with Pat O's.
Tell me about Pat O's.
No.
She's like, those stories remain in Pat O's.
What happens on Bourbon Street stays on Bourbon Street.
All right, I love that. Well then, we can move on then from Pat O's to Pro Bowls, and it was like a 70% of a segue there, and I don't know, it didn't land the way I wanted it to.
Probably the only time those two have been in the same sentence.
Ever.
The Falcons had two players named to the 2025 Pro Bowl games, right guard Chris Lindstrom, for whom this is the third time that he has made the Pro Bowl, so congrats to Chris.
Thrice as nice.
There you go. And then we had a first-timer, special teamer KhaDarel Hodge, who honestly, of anybody, I'm so glad that KhaDarel made it.
Yeah, I am too. He deserved it just from everything that he's done for this team, and I think
he's done a
lot for this team in 2024. And I said not too long ago, I was like, I feel like the story of 2024 is not going to be about KhaDarel Hodge's performance. It's about what's happened with the quarterback situation. It's been about the Falcons kind of losing steam and losing momentum in the middle of the season, maybe not living up to expectations or potential. But there are certain individuals that I think have had stellar years. I'm talking about KhaDarel Hodge, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, Chris Lindstrom. I mean, all of these guys have had individual successes in the year of Darnell Mooney in the year of 2024, but because the Falcons have not been able to consistently play well as a team and put wins together, their individual performances kind of get lost in the sauce. Because if you look at the guys who were voted to Pro Bowls, which I know we'll get into with the game that Will has planned for us, but it's like when you look at what Arnold Ebiketie is doing recently in pass rush, when you look at what Bijan Robinson has done all year long, Drake London, et cetera, AJ Terrell, it's tough because you're looking at their stats and you're looking at their lines and you're kind of like, they're playing to Pro Bowl and all-pro levels, but the Falcons aren't being talked about in the national stage.
Yeah, Terrin, that kind of, as I think about this season holistically, that feels like the story is you've got individual players who are playing some of their best seasons. There are multiple guys, as Tori said, who are having career years, and yet it just hasn't all kind of come together at the right time. What are your thoughts on maybe why that hasn't happened?
As for the why, gosh, who knows? Because that's one of the questions that is still coming up to this day, where it's what changed in Kirk Cousins specifically, because that's kind of the story, as Tori already said. And I think because these questions are going unanswered, it's kind of where a lot of frustrations among the fan base lie. Because, or was it lie? I don't know. Point is,
I think it is
there
luck.
are so many good, strong individual weapons. So it's like, why isn't the team doing better?
Right.
You have all this talent, and we talked about this in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Can you bring it together to be a talented team, not just a bunch of talented individuals?
It's interesting because it was even Kirk Cousins himself. And at the end of training camp, going into kind of the preseason, and people were talking about the lofty expectations of this team in this season. And he kind of said this idea of perception versus reality. The perception of this team going into the season was that they were, going to win the NFC South. They were going to be a 10-win team. And now here we sit, and the reality of it is that there's a chance they could be neither of those things. And we definitely know in the regular season they're not going to get to 10 wins.
Yep.
Jury's still out on what's going to happen Sunday in terms of who's atop the NFC South. But I think that's kind of the ramifications of what this season was, is that the perception and reality didn't match up for this team.
And yet it was so close, right? And,
Right.
and that there was a question in the mailbag that's going up in 15 minutes, but it will be up by the time you're listening to this. So go check it out on AtlantaFalcons.com, kind of laying down just how the season has unfolded and some of the good and the bad and the turnarounds. Like, we look at the defense, and kind of the turnaround that they've made since the bye week is magnificent. But during that stretch, simultaneously, you had a drop-off in the play at quarterback.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, the big takeaway is, yet again, the importance of the quarterback position. And it's almost like unfair how much that one spot has such an outsized importance in this game, but it does.
Yeah.
And that's where, I think we've all enjoyed watching Michael Penix over these last couple of weeks, and we'll get a chance again on Sunday to see what he can do. I think there's a lot of promise with him, even though he's a rookie. So that's kind of the most exciting thing, I think, about Sunday's game. But let's talk about some of the other guys who had individual seasons who, aren't in the Pro Bowl, unfortunately. And the Falcons have a lot of alternates that, they didn't make the cut, but they're right there. Tori, you want to read off a couple?
Yeah, so Bijan Robinson and Jesse Bates, the third, are first alternates. Caden Ellis, Younghoe Koo, third. Matthew Judon, 4. Drew Dahlman, 5. A.J. Terrell, 5. Grady Jarrett, 5. I mean,
Anybody stand out to you as a little surprising to see on that list of alternates?
I didn't. Drew Dahlman. If I'm being completely honest, nothing about Drew Dahlman at all.
He's had an okay season.
No, but he missed a lot of it.
true.
In the
That's
middle
also
part
true.
of the season, we've seen a lot of Ryan Newsel this season.
He may be the fourth best known
Yeah.
Falcons offensive lineman too, which is interesting.
Right, yeah. If I'm talking offensive linemen, I'm talking Chris Lindstrom, Matthew Bergeron, Jake Matthews, Caleb McGarry. I mean,
he's had a good year under the radar, right?
I'm not. Sorry to this man, but I'm so sorry to Drew Dahlman, but I was kind of shocked when he was a fifth alternate because AJ, Grady, Judon
was surprising to me.
Yeah.
We all know that Pro Bowl voting has a lot to do with name recognition.
Yeah.
Right? But he's just not had that year, and I think he would be one of the first to admit it.
Absolutely. And honestly, Younghoe Koo being a third alternate also
That
is
was my surprise.
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit. It's one of those things that the more I get into Pro Bowl voting and the minutia of it and the nuances of it, the more I'm I don't like it, and I feel I feel as though the weighting system should be more to coaches, players, and who they're voting for.
Will and I literally had that conversation yesterday.
Because I just don't get it. I don't get it why some of these are.
My proposal is that the way they do the Senior Bowl, and you've got Jim Nagy and kind of his team of scouts and everything, and they look at the entirety of the college football landscape, and they're kind of that's a guy we want in this game.
Yeah.
I think you need to have kind of a Pro Bowl committee, and you have, a Bill Belichick on there, or John Madden, RIP, but those types of figures, legacy figures of the game, Tony Dungy, former players, coaches, people who know that Rich McKay could head it up, right? I just would love to see them identify players, because it's always just guys who are on good teams.
Right, and
that are doing
popularity
well,
contests, and also kind of fan bases, how big certain fan bases
who are energized, and it's but that's
who's
the
winning.
reward for winning is going to the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be that then you get just a ton of Detroit Lions, but on the other side, it's those guys are playing really well. That's why their teams are doing it. So,
Exactly.
I get both sides of it.
It's I want both. I selfishly want both because I do like the idea of seeing how fans end up voting and what we see in these kind of surprises and things like that, and getting the players involved. And I think it's okay with the way the Pro Bowl is now with the different games and it being flag. But if they want to do a Senior Bowl one and get tackle back in it, then I do think it should be more strategic and like actual talent level, and not how many votes can you get.
Well, what's sad?
Give me 2 games.
Because of what's sad about this like Pro Bowl games now is the Falcons have 2 guys going who really won't get to participate at all.
Yeah.
Like outside of like Chris Lindstrom will probably do like an egg toss or whatever the toss is. Like
See,
I don't know. And then like KhaDarel, there's no like punting.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing for like. I don't want to say this.
Are there like meme awards? Is there like a meme showdown for
like,
KhaDarel?
I don't know. I'm just kind of like it's just sad. Because I wish it was.
The word Pro Bowl, I think, is changing.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. I mean, I put way more stock into all pro seasons and everything
for sure.
like that.
And
like,
so do I think, a lot of,
Like, I think we'd love to see a game of the best of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, that we did that, and they don't go very hard because no one wants to get injured.
Here's what I remember, though, as a kid in 2004, watching the Pro Bowl, and you had, so they literally used to just line up and be like 40-yard dash. Who's the fastest man in the NFL? Like, just old school, they would get the bench press out there, just who can rep. Like, I want that stuff.
Do a combine.
Yeah, exactly. In
adults.
2004, they had Michael Vick, D'Angelo Hall, and Allen Rossum were 3 of the like 7 people, and they would do heats, and they ended up all in the finals. And I was like, this is amazing. This is incredible. We got 3 Falcons who are going to be like up for fastest man in the NFL. Like, I was in heaven. Bring that back.
Yeah.
Even if it's different, right? The games are one thing, but the competition is another thing. Like, I'd maybe be for that too.
Yeah.
Like, get the most interesting, fun guys in that competition part, and then the game could just be who's the best of the best. Put them out there. But we also know, why that's died down a little bit.
I get it.
Yeah.
But let's get to a game of our own.
Yay!
So what I've got here is the
toss?
classic. Oh yeah, line them up. We've got a classic player A, player B. Taking the names out of it, just got pure numbers. I'm gonna read these off, and I want you guys to say, all right, would you go player A? Would you go player B? One is a Pro Bowler, one is not.
Ooh, I like this.
And I've got the actual names here for you. So we're gonna start with number 1, player A. 330 offensive touches, 1,625 scrimmage yards, 15 touchdowns, and 4 fumbles. Player B, 335 touches, 1,714 scrimmage yards, 13 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. Which of those 2 players would you pick for the Pro Bowl?
A.
B.
You go A, you'd go B?
Here's the thing. B, I know for a fact, is Bijan Robinson.
B is Bijan Robinson.
Because I was looking at how many scrimmage yards he had and how much he needs to go.
Oh, so you were cheating? No.
No. I wasn't cheating, but I just know he had 17.
Wait, so that means I'm right.
Yeah, you.
Right-ish, sure.
But it's like the thing is the.
Well, there's no
there's
real,
no
like,
wrong.
it's who would you prefer, and
Yeah.
you were aligned with.
Yeah. You were.
Well, just
I thought it
of
was who made the
those-
Pro Bowl.
Oh,
No.
okay. That's fair. That's fair.
I was like, who do you prefer? And I prefer the person who has 17.
But like, see, there's
I thought it
arguments for
was
both,
who
right?
made
Right,
the
yeah.
You've got
Pro
2
Bowl.
more touchdowns. So Josh Jacobs is player A.
Yep.
No slight to Josh Jacobs, but I think we knew Saquon Barkley was going to be in there. Jahmyr Gibbs, also an amazing season. Detroit, they're going to just load up on Pro Bowlers this year. Josh Jacobs was the surprising one to me, but again, he is right there with Bijan, so like, that's where you get him over the line.
Yeah.
Green Bay is going to the playoffs. Their fans are energized. Like, you understand it, but Bijan was right there. I think of anybody, like, he was pretty worthy of any Falcon.
Unknowingly picking the Alabama grad.
I couldn't agree more about
Loved
Bijan.
covering Josh in college.
All right, let's go to the second one.
All right.
These are a defensive player. Player A, 123 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 0 fumble recoveries, 4 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Player B, 140 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 5 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, 8 tackles for loss, and 16 quarterback hits.
I'm taking B because I know who it is.
I that's the thing is, like, I know reading these, I know who's player A and who's player B. The one argument that I have for player A is the 4 forced fumbles and 2 interceptions.
Yeah, turnovers.
More turnover opportunities. I don't know what the 4 forced fumbles, if those are recovered by the defense or if they're just like forced in general.
Those are just forced in general.
So I'll say turnover opportunities, but the like 16 quarterbacks hits to the 2 quarterback hits, the 5 sacks to the 1, the 140 to the 123. It's really the only reason I would pick A over B is for the turnover.
Yeah.
Quality of
the
it.
dip stat, as Matt Haley has coined it.
The dip, yeah.
A little more dip on your chip.
A little defensive impact plays. Shout out Matt Haley.
Ooh, can I guess who B is?
You can guess who B is.
Caden Ellis.
It is Caden Ellis. Player A is Fred Warner, who is the starting inside linebacker for the NFC Pro Bowl team.
Yep.
So there's another one. We've got the third is a defensive player, so 75 targets in their coverage, 7 touchdowns allowed, 1 interception, 13 passes defensed, 93.1 quarterback rating in their coverage, 68 tackles. Player B, 64 targets, 4 touchdowns allowed, 2 interceptions, 6 passes defensed, 90.4 quarterback rating, and 62 tackles on the season.
I think I know who
Which
A
resume
is.
is better?
I like B, 1, because of the touchdown allowed, 2, turnover qualities. You have 2 to 1. And then also the QBR. QBR being lower.
So you'd go
for
with player B.
Yeah.
I would go with B also, but I think I know who A is.
Do you?
Oh. I was going to say AJ Terrell.
That is player B.
B.
Really?
Yeah.
So player A
I always
is
forget how many
J.C.
interceptions he's
Horn,
had.
who the Falcons will see on the field on Sunday.
Yep.
Carolina Panthers corner. But that was the surprising one to me.
I legitimately, I will pound the table for AJ Terrell.
And he's a 5th alternate.
I know, and
that's crazy.
Here's the thing: is AJ Terrell's entrance into the league will always make me mad because when he was drafted by the Falcons, that draft pick was met with such vitriol that I never understood. I think people had the recency bias of what had happened in the national championship game, and
That was definitely against Justin Jefferson, who he shut down this year.
Exactly. So I think that recency of what had just happened, not 3 months before the draft, okay, whatever. But you have to look at
what it was.
Yeah, you have to look at the body of work, and AJ Terrell is a lockdown corner, and what he's done in the league since being in it. I will pound the table for AJ Terrell being a national name because I feel as though he's playing to the level of being worthy of that. I look at the other corners that were named to Pro Bowls and who have all pro seasons before, and it's what is AJ doing that is not in line or even surpassing what some of these other guys are doing?
He's a perfect example of kind of the first impression rose, right? It's you get the
Bachelor Nation, gang.
If you come in with that reputation, and J.C. Horn and Devin Witherspoon are both great players, but they're in their second season. They kind of had a rookie year that everybody got the attention for, and then this year was kind of all right, let's go ahead and give them their flowers for this year. But AJ has played far better, and he's been targeted less. Quarterbacks are avoiding him, which is, again, the ultimate sign of respect for a cornerback in the NFL. So, yeah, it's he was the one where I just kind of couldn't believe that he's not only not on the roster, but that he's kind of that 5th alternate. That means there are 4 other guys ahead of him. He's waiting in line. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's go to the final comparison that I've got. Again, another defensive player. Player A, 97 tackles, 10 passes defensed, 4 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 sack. Player B, 103 tackles, 15 passes defensed, 4 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 0 touchdowns, 0 fumble recoveries, and 1 sack.
I mean, I know who they are, but
Who are you going with?
I'm going, here's the thing is it's tough because if I'm going back to the second grouping and I valued turnover opportunities.
This is the College Football Playoff Committee.
I know.
Do you care about the strength of schedule or the conference wins,
Exactly. Tori? And I mean, if I'm continuing and I'm being consistent in my evaluation of this, I'm valuing turnover opportunities ahead of just sheer tackles and sacks. So I'm going to go with player A because player A has 8 turnover opportunities to player B's 5.
I would go A too. I mean, just because you broke 100 doesn't make it that much different than 97.
Yeah. Also, depending on what position you play, if you're a defense and you're safety, which I believe is what this is.
One of them is our boy Jesse Bates.
If your safety has over 100 tackles, I'm kind of a bit what's going on?
Suspect.
Yeah,
okay.
what's going on in front of you where you're the one that's having to make those tackles.
That's pretty fair. So player A is Jesse Bates, player B is Brian Branch. Brian Branch, great player, right? And they're both kind of, Jesse's been operating in the box a little bit more because they've got Justin Simmons, certainly than he was last year when Richie was more of the box safety. Brian Branch fills that role for Detroit. But to your point, Detroit's defense has just been kind of devastated this year.
Yeah,
so
by injuries,
you understand why he is making a lot of tackles. And in that case, like I think it's a credit to Brian Branch. Again, it's as well as Jesse has played, and he is a first alternate, right? So he's gotten that respect. The impact plays. He is far and away one of the most impactful defenders in the NFL, and that's where, if you're looking at a Pro Bowler, like to me, definitionally, Jesse Bates is a Pro Bowl type of player, and it's crazy that he just didn't get voted in, but fingers crossed, hopefully he will make it in as an alternate, and we will still see him in the Pro Bowl games. But thank you guys so much for playing my game. That was fun. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as well. Let's go ahead and turn the table and get to Panthers versus Falcons in Week 18. And I will start with another question for you guys.
All right.
So this will be the 6th time that the Falcons have played the Panthers in their final game of the season. Do either of you know who the Falcons have played most in their last game of a football season?
And is this is just regular season, right? It's not including...
Yeah, this is not like they played in the playoffs. Just in their 59 years of existence, who have they played in the final regular season game most?
My guess is the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
I also was going to say the New Orleans Saints, but then there's a part of me that's a little bit going back, like 49ers and or the Eagles, potentially.
Eagles. I get 49ers, old NFC West.
Right. I'll say, just to be different, I'll say the 49ers.
Okay. It is the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
They've played the Saints 10 times. Tampa is second, 7. So obviously you got the division there. But 49ers, I believe, is 4 times. So not too far off. Yeah.
I was just trying to be different, Trying to give it a little...
Weirdly, they've got like Miami and Jacksonville and Cincinnati in there a lot too.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was crazy going through all of that. But this is a matchup where I think a lot of people are kind of weirdly overlooking it because of all of the playoff discussion and kind of the discussion of last week.
Can't do that though.
What you got to do in what Tampa and the Saints and all of that will entail. But what about this Panthers team, Terrin? We'll start with you. Like, has your attention going into this final week?
The fact that Bryce Young is finally comfortable and confident in that offense. Like you've seen him take a step forward where previously, he was benched. The Falcons faced Andy Dalton the first time they played the Panthers. And so now that you have their former first-round draft pick doing what they hoped he had done way back when. Okay, only a year ago. But
we've aged so much since then.
Honestly. Yeah. And so I think seeing what he's able to do now, that could be what's interesting at this game and what's going to be the biggest difference from the previous edition of this matchup in 2024.
Yeah. I do think that you're facing a fundamentally different Panthers team this time around than you were back in Week 6. Yep. I was like, wait, what week was it? But I think the insertion of Bryce Young into this offense, the fact that they don't have Hubbard running the ball in this game, I think that they also have shown some sparks of life in the last 4-ish weeks of the season, the last month of the season. And I don't think that they're a team that is going to go quietly. And I do think if the Falcons don't show up and play to the level that they should play to, I think the Panthers can stick around.
You think this could be like a 17-14 game late in the third quarter?
Potentially. But the thing is like if the Falcons defense, I think, continues to cause chaos, especially up front, I don't see the Panthers offensive line or Bryce Young being able to handle that very well, especially considering the fact that what Tampa Bay did against them last week, where they blitzed on Bryce Young was under pressure almost 70% of his dropbacks. I don't know what the actual number is, but I know it's close to 70%.
Yeah.
And because of that, they were off schedule. They were off kilter a lot. So I think if the Falcons can continue to do what they've been doing from a defensive front standpoint, they should be fine. But, of course, shoulda, woulda, coulda, that's been the name of the game for this entire season. It's like it doesn't matter. The shoulda, woulda, couldas don't matter if the actual foundational truths are not enacted.
Yeah, but what the Falcons have been doing from a at least pass rush standpoint is best in the league. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Since Week 13, the Falcons have 21 sacks, more than double what they had in their first 11 games, and that's most in the league. That's insane. I've never seen a turnaround like that didn't involve going and trading for a huge all-pro name and bringing him in or like something like that. They they've just gotten better.
Yeah.
And we saw it even against Washington. And, the third quarter was what it was. But the first half, I thought they did a really good job of containing Jaden Daniels and kind of that offense. And then they made that stop in the fourth quarter.
They did.
When Washington had a chance to go back down on their own final drive. No, 3 and out. And they got the ball right back to the offense. And obviously we know where everything went from there. I kind of just think they ran out of steam.
Yeah.
But they have played so well. And this is an offense, like you said, that is going to be without their key player in Chuba Hubbard. Now, Adam Thielen and Bryce Young had some weird mind meld alien connection going on last week. Bryce Young, for as bad as that score looked, 48-14, played well.
Yeah.
He had 2 touchdowns.
Considering how much he was under pressure, I'm like, all right, bro.
It's kind of crazy. He's just backpedaling and just chucking it up there, and it's nailing exactly where he intends to go, which is how he played in Alabama.
Bryce has gone through the ringer.
Poor Bryce, yeah. he really has.
Since being the number 1 pick, it's just ouch.
Yeah.
Since then.
It is tough. Let's flip around though to the other quarterback in this matchup, Michael Penix Jr. I think by and large, he's shown the highs that everybody wanted to see when they made him the number 8 overall pick. There have been some missed throws, right? And one of my favorite things in talking to him yesterday during Wednesday's press conference was that he owned up to that. He was like, look, if I'm not sailing passes over these guys' heads, we have a better chance to win that game. And so they're putting in the extra work. They're getting extra reps after practice. But there have still been some of those chemistry issues that have popped up. Is that, Tori, maybe the number 1 thing you're looking to see out of Michael Penix, or is there something else?
Yeah, no, it is number 1 because, and this was something that I wrote about after his very first start, and it's something that I still feel after his second start, was I was like, when you go back and you watch the All-22 of how he was operating within the offense and within kind of understanding where his receivers were, the feel for the game and the feel for the defense and what pockets he could exploit. What I found to be true about him over these 2 starts is that he's making the right decision. He's making the right read. Now, take away the interception. I think that was kind of a fluke thing where they were not on miscommunication.
Right,
Chris Blair had to come in really quickly off the sideline because Darnell couldn't come in. It was a weird moment. So I kind of make that the exception to the rule, not the rule itself. What you see from Michael Penix is even when he's missing these receivers, he's missing long a lot of times.
Yeah,
and
the Bijan throw comes to mind.
Right, Drake. There was a Darnell one. He's missing long. But he's not making the wrong decision by trying to target the guys that they are.
It's execution, not decision-making.
Which I think is fixable.
100%.
I would rather have to fix someone's accuracy than have to fix their decision making, because I think one is an easier fix than the other. And I do believe that, to your point, the more chemistry they build, the more timing plays a factor in Michael Penix knowing how fast Drake London's going to run out of a break, how quickly Darnell Mooney's going to stop and turn around to him. Once he gets a feel for that, I think those overshot throws, those deep balls that are missing by 4 or 5 yards sometimes, I think are going to be on the money the more and more reps that he gets with these specific guys. So that's something that, as I'm looking not just to this next game, but who Michael Penix could be for the next few years in this league, that's something that I think as soon as he gets that, as soon as these are on the money throws, completely changes the way that people talk about him. And I think, I would rather have to kind of be like, hey man, don't put that much air on it, instead of being like, hey man, you completely missed this wide open receiver down the sideline. That's not the conversation that we're having. Right.
I'd almost say put a little more air under it, right? Get a little more of that arc instead of some of these just straight line drive throws. Yeah, but
right.
it was something that, if you look at Josh Allen, right? And I hate making a comparison to somebody who very well could be the league MVP this year. That's how well he's playing. But when he came into the league, that accuracy wasn't to the level that it is now. So that is something that is correctable. And I remember seeing the same type of thing in training camp. And I was standing next to our friend Dave Archer.
Hey, Dave.
Just like, hey, Dave, what would cause a quarterback to miss high or miss long like that? And basically he said, as a thrower, you need to stay on top of the ball. You need to kind of stay in control of the ball, not let it get under you, and then you're launching it kind of a little bit long. So these are correctable things. These are things that when you have a whole offseason to work on, I think he will look night and day when he kind of gets back in next year and the different version we see of Michael Penix. But Terrin, is there anything else that you really want to see from number 9 out there?
This is going to sound so cheesy, but I want to see him enjoy himself because you got that first start out of the way. You got a playoff implication game out of the way. Like, those are very two different emotions where it's like super heightened in very different ways.
Yeah.
And so now against a team that technically the Falcons on paper should easily beat, relax, have some fun with it and show us what you got. Be able to take some risk this time because I don't think you could have done that against Washington, and I don't think you should have done that in his first start, because that was getting his feet under him and starting off and getting him comfortable, and the other one was pressure's on, lights on, don't screw up. And then this one, it's kind of all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard the nickname for him and Drake London?
No.
9 to 5.
I love it.
Dolly.
I like that. Go to
and
work.
Pitbull.
And Pitbull, yeah.
And Pitbull.
Love it.
All right, really quickly, let's do one thing to win. Terrin, we'll start with you first.
Ooh, okay. Well, I guess going back to what Tori was saying about playing to your level. Do not slack off just because it's the Panthers. Because I know you mentioned that with the defense. I think that also goes with the offense where it's okay, yeah, we're in week 18. The playoff destiny is no longer in your hands, but you're not out of it. So, still perform. Go out with a bang for, yourself. Even if Tampa Bay does win and your playoff hopes are shot, do this for yourself and end on a good note. And that's about, that's all I got.
No, I love that.
I think that's a
it's
good one.
important,
Yeah.
right?
I know. I just, added an extra and I was like, no, that was
And
it.
that's it.
That was it.
That's
And I'm
podcasting,
done.
ladies and gentlemen. It's tough.
I was I don't have any more.
I'm going to say keep the foot on the gas as a defensive front. I really, really want to see this, to your point, actually, the fact that the defensive front and pass rush got such a knock in the first few weeks of the season, all the way up until the bye week, because it just was non-existent. And the fact that they, to your point, the fact that they have had the turnaround that they've had, finish on a good note in terms of how much you're pressuring Bryce Young, how much you're putting pressure on the offensive line. And I do believe, just from looking at this matchup, that if the Falcons can consistently move Bryce Young off of his spot, keep him under pressure, keep him off kilter, the harder it's going to be for the Panthers to score points. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to be tough sledding for the Falcons offense to score, especially if they can get Bijan Robinson going and the run game going. I think they'll be fine. It's, okay, when things break down offensively for the Panthers, put the dagger in, really finish it off. Don't let Bryce Young kind of skedaddle wherever he needs to go. Make sure that you are getting the job done and kind of sticking a fork in it, because I think if this defense can stick a fork in it, this game should be the Falcons.
100%. And yeah, I'll pick up kind of with what you said about the offense. It's just funnel it through Bijan.
Yes.
As much as I think we all want to see what Michael Penix can do, even if he has to throw the ball 30 times or something like that, the best way to win this game is just keep giving it to number 7. He has been on such a tear. This is the league's worst run defense.
Yep.
Just hand it off to Bijan. Let him get you 7 yards a pop. I'd love to see him break a 40-yard run, kind of like he had against the Saints. If you do that and then allow everybody else to play off of that and allow Michael Penix to play off of that, then it's just always going to be such a huge recipe for success for this team.
And if you're going to force the ball into anyone's hands outside of Bijan, let it be Darnell Mooney, because he's really close to breaking 1,000 yards, and I feel like he deserves to kind of surpass that marker.
He's 9 yards away, and when somebody brought that up to Michael Penix yesterday, he was like, oh, he's going to get that. So I think he's well aware.
I got it.
And then Tyler Algier, I think, is also 30 yards away from moving into top 10 all-time in rushing yards.
Wow.
Which is crazy already. Third season, and honestly, this year, I don't think he's been utilized as much as we expected him to, but when he's been out there, he's been effective. It's just he's been that closer for Atlanta, and there haven't been that many. I think they've been in 11 one-score games this year. So if
and
you
how many of them
that,
were they having to come from behind instead of leading, because that
Philly,
changes. Yeah, that changes
Washington.
your usage of being willing to run the ball, because if you're coming from behind and you're out of time, like that's not going to happen. Yeah,
like a lot of them.
a lot of
all of them. Question mark.
yeah.
So but there are definitely some milestones that could be hit. There's some individual accolades, but honestly, again, this is a team sport, and they need to go out there and play like a team and play to their level and get a win on Sunday. And then the rest is out of their hands. They've done what they can do, but. Go.
Then it's between the
No, I'm
Saints.
not gonna say it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Everybody else can
We will
say
see. We'll see how that one shakes out. But thank you guys so much for listening and watching on our YouTube channel. If that's how you choose to do it, you can check out our YouTube channel at noon before Sunday's kickoff for the pregame show with Eric Rackley and Taylor Vismore. Outside of that, we will be back after the game to recap all of the action. But until then, everybody, for Tori McElhaney and Terrin Walk, I'm Will McFadden, and we will see y'all then. Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's.